Hello there, everybody, and I can already see quite a few people have come to join us on this live webinar. My name is Sally Cathcart, and I'm just thrilled to have been joined by the ever wonderful Karen Marshall, and she's brought a couple of colleagues with her, friends, yeah. Because Karen, as you will well know, is the author of the Get Set Piano series, and we're here today to launch her latest in the series, which is Couch to Concert. Yeah, everybody I've said this to has laughed immediately and gone, "Oh, that's clever." So delighted you're here, Karen. And Karen has been joined by Tom Lydon, who is a music publisher from HarperCollins, and he's going to be behind the scenes doing all the techie stuff. And also joining Sharon is Anastasia Cunningham. Anastasia is actually a member of the Curious Piano Teachers, and she has been acting as a consultant with Karen on these books. And so Karen thought it would be really nice to have her along, to have a different perspective. I'm just going to quickly go down the list. We've got Anne, we've got April, Catherine, yeah, lots of Catherines actually, Gillian, Jenny, lots of people coming in, Victoria's there, Marianne, super. Thank you all so much for coming along. I'm going to also be in the background, and if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat and I will be passing them on to Karen. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Karen and let her talk us through it. Karen, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me and Tom and Anastasia here. I'm absolutely thrilled to always be with the Curious Piano Teachers, because it's just such a lovely community, and I know you've had me a number of times in the past, and Anastasia is indeed a member of your community. And when Anastasia has been asking for this book for decades, and she's going to talk a little bit about what she was looking in a tutor, and Anastasia, amongst other teachers, have fed a lot in about what they are looking for. So Couch to Concert really is about making sure that we've got a publication that adds something a little bit different to the already wonderful amount of work that is there. So we're going to introduce ourselves properly. So I am Karen Marshall. I am still a practicing piano teacher. I've got adults, teens, and I've got very little children as well. I've been teaching the piano for over 30 years now. And Anastasia, over to you.
Right, so let me just, yes, okay, so I've been teaching piano for 10 years now, but before that I spent 10 years teaching Kodály-based musicianship in a specialist Kodály music school. So I've always placed musicianship at the centre of my piano teaching. And I met Karen back in 2014 when I was just about poised to start piano teaching. I was looking for the perfect tutor books for me, and discovered the Get Set Piano books, which perfectly aligned with my own approach. It's got that built-in musicianship, solid focus, fun pieces, suitably progressive, hands together from the start. And then not that long after that, as Karen's already alluded to, I started saying, we really could do with an older beginner's book. So yes, that's been an ongoing pester, basically. I keep pestering Karen for this, and had the great news in early 2024 that there was a book in the works. And I've been involved in this project since October last year, so a year now, reviewing, inputting into the drafts and working with Karen. And I'm absolutely thrilled with the result that we're going to kind of dip into today.
And I think the thing is, Anastasia, it was so helpful to me to hear, what you were looking for as well, because you'd mentioned that you'd actually been a little concerned about teaching teens and adults, hadn't you?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? That it is different. It is different sort of teaching adults and teens. So, you know, thank you so much for all that input and all the other teachers and students that have inputted too. So we wanted this session to also give some really good general training on teaching this group of learners, because it is different, and it's been split into 5 top tips. And Tom is going to sort of share this screen, this number 4 screen now, which talks about these tips. So if we go to I think we need the 4th slide, Tom. That's it. There we go. Thank you. First of all, I've got there motivational. It can be tough learning the piano as an adult and also potentially as a teen. So motivation was put as a key part of these books, helped by the fact that I was also doing a professional coaching qualification at the same time. So I was studying about motivation and sort of coaching people to feel motivated to do. So motivation was a part of it. Age appropriate use of scaffolding. And what am I talking about when I'm talking about scaffolding? Well, I'm talking about things that aid the learning. And in this case, there's quite a lot of words in the tutor to help with rhythm in particular. But it was so important that these words were age appropriate. There's other scaffolding in the books as well. So we talk about sort of landmark notes and scaffolding too, from the fact that the progression, and Anastasia will talk about this, works in a particular way to help maximise things for the learner. Behind the scenes, well, I've found, and I know Anastasia has as well, and many other teachers I've spoken to, is that adults and teens particularly want to know more about the why. Why is it this way? Why is it the other way? What is the background about that composer? Why do we have to use particular finger numbers? What's the theory behind it? More detailed information on technique. And they like to have, in my experience, quite a collaborative approach. Repertoire. I found that teens and adults particularly liked real music, and this could be appropriate arrangements, but they really like original pieces of music that great composers have written for beginners in their time. So a huge amount of research was done to find those composers, and I'm really thrilled with the number of different voices that are in there, from Florence Price to Hook, to an arrangement of the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. There's lots of different voices in there. And this repertoire, there's lots of timeless things in there, like we've got a part of the Fur Release in there. We as teachers, I have to keep reminding myself that as much as that piece is not new to me, it is new to my learners. And finally, realistic expectations. We can't actually be setting up our students to fail. They want a realistic progression. And what I was ending up doing was using sort of children's tutor books for adults and apologising, because some of the books, and there's some brilliant adult teen books out there, but 1 or 2 of them were quite a fast progression. And so it was also about making sure it was realistic, with lots of sideward progression to reinforce things. And the Pieces book actually fits alongside the tutor, and in the tutor it references the pieces that go alongside. So you as a teacher can do a little bit of teacher assessment by saying, have a go at this piece, and you can actually see in another context where the learner is. So those are the 5 things that we're going to be looking over today. So if we go on to the next slide, we're going to be, I'd say, talking about motivation. And I always think it's really important to think, what is in it for them? You know, why is this student, why is this teen, why is this adult wanting to learn the piano? What's motivating them? What's driving them? And this can be a myriad of reasons. Lots of retired, I've had a huge privilege in teaching a number of retired people across my career, where the piano has been something that they've wanted to do for the whole of their lives and not had the time or the opportunity before. But it can be for lots of other reasons. I know that for a lot of my teen learners, they find learning the piano a wonderful wellbeing experience. It's something that they can just do. It's away from technology, and they can just lose themselves, almost like a mindfulness activity. And also, journaling is included, particularly in the pieces book, but also an opportunity to reflect in the pieces book as well, because there's massive benefits in journaling, in the fact that when we journal, we are reflecting back to ourselves sort of our answers to things. We're sort of reflecting, you know, it's like having that bit of space to actually think, well, you know, how is my learning going? What works best for me? And having a bit of that distance. So if we look on the next slide, we have, this is listed in the book. I've heard it say that there's more areas of the brain lights up than an astronaut going into space from playing the piano. It really is a total workout for your brain. But there's all these other things as well. And I think it's very interesting about the opportunities it can develop for resilience, for patience, for tenacity. Certainly, you know, the piano can be a challenging thing where students, teens, don't get the instant results that they're used to. And that's the reason why we do need to be looking at these motivational factors and thinking about what it's like for us when we're learning a new thing. I mean, I'm actually back in education at the moment. I'm still piano teaching, but I'm doing a course as well. And actually being in that learning situation is quite challenging. And so I think actually being aware of that, particularly with adults and teens, is important. It's important. First and foremost, I think it's really important to be inspired about this art form of playing the piano. You know, this is something that has stretched back centuries, and I always feel like having a piano in a house really makes a home. And I think that's very, very true still today. So I think those motivational factors are extremely important. So if we move on to the next slide, we can actually look at my practice plan. So you can download this completely free of charge, so the student can download these resources and actually make their own practice plans as they go along. but also there's these check-ins, and you can tell that I'm a primary school teacher because we have check-ins at school. And actually, I started doing check-ins with my students in their piano lessons. You know, how has the learning gone? How are they feeling? And it's really helpful to reflect on that. Journaling, as I say, there's some key questions there which helps the learner sort of reflect on things and know what works well, what hasn't worked well, what do you need to change. It's almost like creating a bit of a flight path to the learning. So we've covered motivation there. We're going to go on to the next point now, where we're going to talk a little bit about the use of words in the book as a form of scaffolding. Now, humour is very important, I have found, with these learners. And actually just turning the song Bingo into something that is more teen and adult friendly went down really well with students. And basically there's lots of these humorous things throughout the book just to put a smile on the face, particularly if somebody might be finding something difficult. Actually a bit of humour goes a long way. So we've got Bingo there, and I've talked about the thinking voice there. The thinking voice is about hearing the words in your head, which actually gives you the rhythm. So Granny Annie's Friday night is always spent at bingo. So you would then think of those words. Okay, so that just gives you an indication of the thinking voice and how you can use that in the learning. So let's move on. Well, you know, this is just a classic, isn't it? So instead of having once a man fell in a well, we now have various practice excuses, from prickling our fingers on cactuses to leaving the books on in Dad's car for the whole week. I have got a portfolio of really fun practice excuses over the years, and I know I've given lots myself, you know, but as I say, putting that humour in with age appropriate words does go a long way. But importantly, that scaffolding put in place does help with the rhythm. And if a student is trying to balance all of the time these issues with all the different notes, with all the different symbols, actually making that part like scaffolding, like holding things up a bit, is just very, very helpful. So on the next slide, we talk about explanation. So basically, in the book, we've explained about how to learn a piece. And this can be done not just in this book, but in all books. You know, there's words with lots of piano music, but it actually gives a little bit of strategy and a little bit of support on how to do that. So that is scaffolding. Oh, just a note on scaffolding, you have to take it away as well. You have to make sure that you gradually remove it. So words are taken away as they go through the book. Likewise, if you're using landmark notes, I sometimes colour code a G with a green colour pencil. You need to work out when is appropriate to take away that scaffolding, so our students do develop that independent learning as well. So we're on to another category, and then we're going to be hearing again from Anastasia. So behind the scenes, learning the piano, they really do need to know why. And I've been asked, lots of really logical questions that are sometimes a bit confusing to ask. Like notation itself is a very complex thing and isn't always the most logical in the way it is put together. So, students do like to know these whys. So in the book, it does sort of go into some of those mechanics. It does talk about the musical history. And I'm very, very grateful to the two editors I had. There was Michelle, but also Tom, who actually helped me make sure that the summary about the different musical periods gave some really wonderful, precise, accurate information on them that wasn't too big, but also was enough so students had more of an understanding. So the why with teens and adults is very important. But something else is absolutely crucial, and Anastasia is going to go through this now on the next slide, which is about cohesion.
All right, thank you, Karen. Before I talk about cohesion, I've got a slightly different slant on the why, which was why was I pestering Karen so hard for these books? So, I mean, the issue that I had is I just couldn't find anything out there that was suitable, I felt, that fitted the way I wanted to teach for adults and teens. There were a few that I've kind of made do with when I've had to. I've even used Get Set with adults. I wouldn't have dreamt of using that with teens, but you can get away with it with adults because they can see past the styling. And they, as long as you explain again why you're using those books, they're fine with it. But what I really wanted was something that was fun, had fulfilling pieces, ideally in a singable range, with systematic progression and strong musicianship at the heart of it. And because I really didn't find anything that was ideal for me, I actually actively avoided teaching beginner teens and beginner adults for years, literally. So these books have got that familiar Get Set style for those who are used to the Get Set books, but they're so tailored, as Karen's been alluding to, for the older beginners in terms of styling and content. Lyrics are adapted brilliantly, and lots of new pieces. So, but again, we've got this familiar structure with the tutor book and the pieces book and the cross references, making it easy to use. And I love the fact that we've got a contents page, which is great because you can see at a glance the different musical periods or the different styles and where they're coming up. And the reflection prompts and journaling that Karen's alluded to, which teens in particular are just so used to doing. It's kind of part of their normal vocab and the way they approach learning anyway. So I think that's been really good as well. Okay, so then to move on to cohesion, it's, to me, the progress that is so important, the way it's systematic. So it's moving from the known to the unknown in small achievable steps, which is building confidence through that slow but constant progression. The Pieces book has got that extra repertoire to reinforce new concepts and is cross-referenced, as I've said, from the tutor book. So it's really easy to link directly across and to link that learning. And this together then ensures a really cohesive learning journey. The teaching approach reflects Kodály principles, sequential, logical, confidence building, but fundamentally, it's simply good teaching practice. And it's very learner focused. So the teens and adults are often far more questioning and self-critical than children. But the friendly, supportive tone of the books really helps reduce that anxiety. And the regular check-ins and practice tips are really encouraging for motivation because of that reflection. So I just feel that they are written in such a way that they really will help us as teachers nurture that confidence and consistency in learning in our students. So yeah, I'm excited to get going.
Oh, thank you, Anastasia. And just to say that I know it's come up about, what does the book cover? This actually, both books cover book 1 and 2 of Get Set, the original books. So rather than having a book 1 and a book 2, we've actually put it all in one, because we've found that actually, having it in one place and seeing where they can get to is very, very motivational, for teens, and adults. Oh, thank you, Karen Langtree, for that comment. And yes, I was listening to you too. I'm so lucky that for all of the teachers that have embrace Get Set, and I'm always very, very grateful to you all, for actually sort of picking the tutor, because there's so many out there that I am very grateful that you are willing to choose it. Okay, so as I say, it does cover all of that content of Get Set Piano 1 and 2. It does cover, it's all there. So we're still focusing on the why, and we're going to go to the next slide now, and I'm going to talk about misconceptions, because misconceptions are really important things to address, because we know we've been playing the piano for decades, most of us, and it's very difficult to think, what can cause confusion to new learners, and the same with adults. So if you've got an adult and teen who has been learning the guitar, the finger numbers will be different that they are using on the guitar compared to the piano. The whole aspect of lines and spaces can be very, very confusing. I use the hand and talk about there's 5 lines and there's 4 spaces. But just like with younger children, adults and teens do need these things explained. So in here, it is just as comprehensive as the original books are. And we do need to assess these misconceptions in an extremely sensitive way as well. How are we going to check that a student is understanding it? And we can do this with a teach me approach. And I often say to teens, if they haven't understood that concept, that's nothing to do with them. It is my teaching. And so it just, it just is something that I take responsibility for and say, I have to focus on what is important for your learning. And having those conversations are really lovely with adults and teens, because they've got more language, and they can feel, in many cases, not all, but they can feel more confident to explain. And I will say, to my teens, what does your school teachers do that particularly works for you? Or adult learners, your favourite school teacher, what did they do to help with your learning? Cognitive overload. We need to have attention and be engaged to learn. If we have cognitive overload, then you have an issue with the student actually shutting down. There's too much information gone in, and then they can't have attention. So again, that is why things have to be extremely sequential. Things have to be very, very sequential and drip fed through to actually, work on that cognitive overload and making sure it's not happening, and that the student is able to have full attention on what they are learning. So I have found, and Anastasia also reiterated this, that teens and adults do really love understanding about keyboard harmony. And there is a very comprehensive, it's very comprehensive in the book on this aspect. So it's, we've got things outlined and explained. And then there is an opportunity for students to put that learning into practice. So if we move on to the next slide, you will see a lead sheet. And this is a really simple one, just with the tonics, subdominant and dominant. But there is more complexity too. So we do introduce some of the minor secondary chords as well. And there is a beautiful opportunity for students to actually harmonise their own version of, let me remember which one it is. There's Auld Lang Syne, so that they can actually sort of come up with their own version of Auld Lang Syne if they're doing a New Year's Eve thing. But there is also, let me find it, New Orleans. So there's Michael Rose, Your Boat's Ashore is there. And then the House of the Rising Sun. The House of the Rising Sun is there as well. And we've got, when it's more difficult, we've put in extra scaffolding there. So you've got keyboard charts of the G second inversion chord, the A minor second inversion, the B first inversion chord. We have put that extra scaffolding in for them. So moving on, and I think we're going to be actually, Anastasia is going to be talking a little bit about inspiring pieces, but when I say and name that tune, we're going to be listening to music, and you're not actually naming that tune, you're naming that teaching concept. So it's about listening and thinking, why has that piece of music been included, naming that teaching concept. So Anastasia, please, can you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so inspiring repertoire. I mean, in order to inspire teens and adults, I really think it's essential that the pieces need to be fun to play, and fun to play even without a teacher part. All too often, in my experience, books aimed at this age group, beginner books, the pieces are fine with the teacher accompaniment, but as soon as they're going home and practicing them by themselves, there's just not an awful lot going on. So they need to be musically satisfying and fun for them to be practicing when they're not with a teacher part. They need to be the correct level of challenge. So there needs to be a bit of challenge, but it needs to be realistically paced. There is no point in putting something that they're just gonna fail at, and they're gonna just get totally demotivated. But equally, they do need that systematic progress that they can actually see they're developing as pianists. I also felt it was really, really important to have a mix of styles. So as well as the pieces composed specifically for the books, and the ones that have been reworded from the original Get Set, there's an increase in classical repertoire, both known, so Moonlight Sonata and Fur Elise are in there, but also unfamiliar ones too, which is great. And there's well-known favourites. So we've got things like Oh When the Saints and Scarborough Fair. And we've also got diverse composers. So as Karen was mentioning previously, there's a piece in there from Florence Price. And then, as she's just been talking about, exciting inclusions in this that aren't in the original Get Set books is we've got all of these lead sheets, which I just think is so key for this age group, because what do they want to do? They want to be able to play their pop songs, the video games, the things that they hear, the things that are kind of they're singing. They want to be able to play chords. They want to be able to accompany themselves, maybe singing along, or even have a go with other musicians playing in a band. So it's really great that that's there. And we've also got improvisation in there as well, which is really exciting. So kind of, I mean, I guess you've heard in the way that I'm effusing about these books, but then these books are making me really excited to teach the older beginners. So whereas, I was, as I've said, I avoided this age group if I could. And I'm now actively thinking, right, who have I got on my waiting list who I can get on board? Because I've got several I've already started using the books with as well. So
Well, thank you, Anastasia, for that. That's really appreciated. And you did make suggestions about things to include, and we worked at that. As did, I worked with a music service. So there was lots of students that had lessons in York on a Saturday morning in a Saturday morning music service, and they made sort of suggestions. And Karen Langtree's talked about the Wellerman. Yes, the Wellerman is there. And that was one of them that was suggested. And I think actually having the student's voice in the books is absolutely essential, so that we are going to things that they recognise and that they want to play. So if we move on, so this is from the Pieces book, and it's pretty terrifying arranging Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. So I have to give credit to my amazing editor, Tom Lydon, who actually also supported me in it. And I really hope that you like the arrangement, because it was very carefully crafted to make sure that it kept a lot of the original, but also was pianistic. So let's just have a little listen. Okay, so it actually sounds like the moonlight, but it's in a much, much more accessible key. But when I was doing this, I was conscious that lots of my teens did mashups. So the idea for the next piece came from the fact that students do mashups. So if we go on to the next slide, you will see a mashup of themes by Mozart, themes by Haydn. And I'd like to ask anybody in the chat, what do you think the pedagogical challenges are of this particular piece? Have we got any sort of ideas? So you get those in the chats. Okay, so basically, grateful to Heather Hammond here as well, who did help me with these words. So you've got all of these different clips from these themes by these great composers, and you did get a little taster of our wonderful audio there as well. Peter Noak is just a just a wonderful pianist, and he has produced all of this audio. So there is a backing track for that. So the student can play their solo line, have beautiful Peter in the background, or they can have beautiful you as their teacher playing, because there's also free, there's free written music there as well. So in terms of the main sort of pedagogical challenges in here, it has got quite a few accidentals in, but also actually maintaining the pulse with all of these different pieces of music is very challenging, but it's so worthwhile to help our students to develop that. So this is about pulse maintenance, but also about developing 5-finger reading in those positions, but also about expression. So the words here are supposed to encourage that expression. So if we move on to the next one. So the next piece, let's have a listen to this.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So any thoughts about the pedagogy of this particular piece? Anybody? Before I give the answers. They all know it, Anastasia. They all know it. Anyway, moving out of hand position, basically. So it's only one hand at a time, and it's a small amount of movement, but they've got to do it. And moving out of hand position is a particularly tricky thing. There's lots of accidentals in there and lots of articulation as well. They absolutely love this. And you'll see the little star up there that says 1. And Anastasia, you touched on this, didn't we? We had lots of debates about challenge levels, didn't we? So there is actually a key to this. So in terms of there's challenges 1, 2 and 3, because we found that students actually really appreciated knowing if something was going to take a long time. And it's very important that they don't necessarily think that they just have to learn a piece in a week. It is going to be times when it is going to take longer. So there is a little key to challenge, and I think challenge 1 is it's over 2 weeks, and 2 it's over a month, and it can be up to 3 months with a challenge 3 piece like the Moonlight Sonata, which if a student knows that, they're not going to get as disheartened if it's taking them longer. But as I say, we had lots of debate about challenge times, didn't we, Anastasia? Lots of debates about challenge times. Now we're going to listen to the next one, and I have my my lovely editors to thank for these styles of music. So let's have a listen to this one.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So Tom very rightly said, and we all know this as teachers, that teens love minimalistic music. It's packed with pattern. So there's quite a lot of it in the books. And this particular piece is probably coming up to grade 2 standard, but I have had students who just like it so much that they're very motivated to stick at it. The great thing about minimalism is it's packed with pattern, which in its own way is a form of scaffolding. So here you can see that the pattern just goes up the octave, and there's lots of repeated pattern, so that the cognitive load, you know, how much work our brain needs to do to learn it, is actually reduced. So minimalistic pieces, very, very important. And it's been huge fun sort of writing them as well. And also, I've loved the fact that students have been so honest. So lots of things have gone in the bin because it's not worked for them. And that's how it should be. You know, it's very, very important. I always think it's really important to honour the reader so that they are getting something. If they're putting in the effort, then we want to make sure that they've got things that they're going to truly love to play, and they feel that, you know, music at the heart of it and the joy of making music. So let's go on to the next one, where you'll see some of the background research that has been done. Now, this is adapted because Le Coupé originally wrote the right hand an octave higher, and we've not introduced those notes yet. So it's been slightly adapted, but it's a really useful piece at a very easy level that students love because it's real music. So let's have a listen to this one.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so we can see here that it's very early stages, but it sounds impressive. But we've also managed to sort of sneak in some extra skills here of dynamics, contrasting articulation. And also we're bringing in the concept of a theme and variation as well, which is something that is very, very enjoyable. It's in one hand position though, so it feels very, very safe too. So let's move on to the next one here. 3/4 is difficult for beginners because they often just simply turn it into 4/4. 4/4 music is so much more common than 3/4. So actually having a piece in there that is a real workout for triple meter was important. Now, if you've noticed, we're also trying to get the learners to write in the fingering that works for them and to think about fingering, because finger independence, again, very important, but fingers can have their, a mind of their own, and they can actually sort of move out of hand position quite easily at this stage because the control isn't as there. So actually encouraging students to write in their own fingering as teens and adults, we also found as a really helpful thing to do. So let's have a listen to this one.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
And the great thing about this piece is it has ties in but not too many of them. So basically, it does have those ties in to just have a little taster, to get students used to that as well. Basically, so, oh, this is a coincidence. We've got a question there from Anne about suitable pieces in with F sharp and B flat. Well, the next piece, actually, Anne, you must have read our minds, because that is in F major. So this one basically it's got lots of brilliant pedagogy in, and Florence Price really was such an experienced piano teacher. And you can see here how she's sneaked in that ledger line D in the left hand, and that she is sort of working on that little penta shape there. Anyway, so let's have a listen to this one.
One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And we've only got one B flat that needs to be played in that piece, but it is there. And it's just a really lovely piece of pedagogy there. And it's nice to be able to also have something in 2/2 time as well. And as you say, Pat, and you would want to sort of get them to play the F major scale as well. With that, there is actually a number of pieces in the different keys throughout the book, so please be assured on that. So moving on, let's go on to the next piece of music here. So I've already talked about the wonderful audio, but I absolutely love the accompaniment for the elephant. This has been put in as a real left-hand workout and bass clef reading. It's heavily fingered to provide a little bit more support as well. But anyway, do have a listen to the elephant now.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, the other thing that has been done is if a piece is in the original Get Set book, nearly all of the time, apart from a very few occasions, the pieces have been extended. So I'm going to play to you now Shining. So if we go on to the next step. Now, we all know Shining in Pieces Book 1 of Get Set. It's probably one of the most popular pieces that teachers say. It's been moved into D major, but there is now a middle section in it. So let's have a quick listen to it. And if you could just keep a bit of the middle section on, Tom, as well, that would be great. So it was all about trying to give you a little bit more. And because actually for the teen, for the adult, having a more substantial piece there was really enjoyed. It was really enjoyed. So we've not much time left, so I'm just going to sort of rattle through a bit, and Anastasia needs to give us a bit more information. So if we go to the next slide, you can see how new notes are introduced by this good news tune that happens over and over again, and it's in the major and the minor, so that actually just keeps reoccurring. If we go on to the next slide again, throughout the book there's revision and recaps, so you can actually check in with your student, and this was an Anastasia idea, that of actually getting sort of some extra sort of assessment in there so we can assess the learning. And just before we finish, if we go into the next slide, anything else you'd like to add, Anastasia?
I think no, I think we've covered it as we've gone along, but I mean, yeah, these books are going to just change the way I approach adults and teens, and I hope you'll like them as much as I do.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and please give us feedback as well. As I say, we have reprints, we can make tweaks, and I've always tried to put the teacher directly in the books. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Anastasia, for that overview of what looks like a fabulous series for people to get stuck into. I love all the different kind of learning points that you've brought in. Real teacher's hat on, that you can tell the realistic progression, the journaling, how much are they going to love that, as well as the practice plans. I mean, there's just so much in there, and the challenge levels. I can see that, as Anastasia is already finding, that for many people with teenagers and adults, they're going to really enjoy it. And I can look down the comments as well. Marianne saying really great pieces. Adults are going to love them, and can't wait to start using these books from Ruth Alberici there. And I think they're taking on board the fact that they can give you some feedback on it. So everybody liking the ownership as well that the books give the learner. Absolutely. Karen's going out to buy them, and going to try them out with a new student who's starting after half term, and Victoria's going off to buy them. She says these books look novel and have really considered the unique learning needs of teenagers that don't fit into the traditional adult methods. So, Karen, I think you've brought your usual care, love, attention to all these books, and your deep pedagogical knowledge, and they look really, really very different, and I'm sure they're going to be a huge success. So thank you from all the piano teaching world. Thank you for spending the time, and thank you to Anastasia and Karen, it wasn't it, as well as other people who kind of said, come on, we need this from you, Karen. Well done.
But thank you to everybody that's come. And thank you so much to everybody that supported the series. And thank you, Sally, for having me again. We have some wonderful pedagogical chats, don't we, Sally? And
we do.
We're passionate educators. And I think that being a piano teacher is an absolute privilege. And it's more than just the music, isn't it? We give so much to our communities and society. And so a big thank you to everybody that what everybody does, because it's a special role that we play.
Indeed it is. And you definitely help us with bringing the joy into our lessons. So, as Karen said, thank you to everybody who's come today, and I will be sharing this presentation out on YouTube. Also, thank you to Tom for skillfully managing all the slides and the sound in the background.
The shading out
The
of the
shade,
noise.
I know,
Brilliant.
I know. Took me a little while to work that was happening, but I thought, oh, this is really clever. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Anastasia, it's lovely to hear a teacher's perspective. So that was just really super. But most of all, thank you, Karen, again, for everything that you've brought to the last hour and sharing your passion for it all. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Bye-bye.